In today's video, we are going to cover exactly how to make this 3D printable car trash can, and as well as how to create joints and moving parts within Fusion 360. So with that said, let's get started. Welcome back everyone to another Fusion 360 tutorial. Today we are on part 6. Today we're going to learn how to create this 3D printable car trash can so you can take this with you, 3D print it, and use it for your car if you ever have trash in there and you want to throw it away. So with that said, let's briefly go over exactly what we're going to cover in today's video. First thing we're going to cover is how to create this 3D printable trash can from start to finish using Fusion 360. Additionally, we'll also learn exactly how to navigate between components. So if you're using certain features between each component and making sure to make your workspace generally clean and organized, especially when you are dealing with multiple bodies and pieces. Additionally, we're also going to learn how to use the section analysis feature within Fusion in order to get a good section analysis look of our product and design and make sure that it is going to work and fit together. Additionally, if you haven't already, make sure to join the 3D printing community down below in the description. So with that said, let's jump into Fusion and get started. So here we are in a completely blank new canvas. Let's go ahead and get started with this project. So the first thing we need to do is go ahead and click on Create, New Component, and what we're going to do is name this to 3D Printable Car Trash Can. Once that's done, press OK. From here, let's go ahead and get started with creating our sketch. So from here, let's go ahead and click on Create, Create Sketch, select this bottom plane, and now using the center diameter circle, let's select that, select our origin, and then drag this out to about 62 millimeters. From here, what we need to do is create an offset for our design. So from here, in order to do that, what we need to do is press S on our keyboard, which brings up the sketch shortcuts, typing in offset. And what we're mainly or primarily looking for is offset plane. So after that, select that option there. Select the sketch that we just created and drag this up to about 150 millimeters. Now, what we're going to do now is create another sketch on this newly created plane that we just added. So by creating or clicking on Create Sketch, selecting the plane, and from here creating another center diameter circle, selecting the origin, dragging this out, and this one's actually going to be 88 millimeters. Now what we have so far is two sketches. We have a bottom sketch that is 62 millimeters, and we have a top sketch which is 88 millimeters. Once you have those two, press OK. And now within Fusion 360, what we can do is connect these two sketches to form one unified body. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and type in S on our keyboard, which brings up the design shortcuts. Type in Loft, select that option there. And what we want to do now is select this first sketch and this second sketch. And from here, Fusion 360 is going to go ahead and combine these two profiles and essentially create a body using these sketches that we just made. This is perfect for sketches that are not like have a rectangular shape or they don't have a linear path. This is more like creating or connecting sketches that are different sizes and dimensions to each other, and you're also able to create different shapes and all these other forms using this feature. But for now, we'll be using Loft to connect these two profiles. After that's done, press OK. Now what we need to do now is go ahead and create two separate pieces for our design. Since we will have a lid for our top piece and the bottom will act as the trash can, we need to go ahead and create two separate pieces for this. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and press S on our keyboard, typing in offset, and we'll go ahead and create another offset plane. From here, let's go ahead, zoom in, select this top face here, and drag this out to about -40 millimeters. From here, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. Now, as of right now, this plane is intersecting this body, and we need to cut this body using this plane. So from here, press S on your keyboard, split body, select the body, select the plane, press OK. Now you should have a total of two bodies. So if we were to go into our browser tab and look at the bodies that we have here, we have body 1, which we could rename this to bottom, and then body 2, lid. Now what we want to do now is go ahead and separate these two pieces into two different components. That way we can make sure we can organize these things, especially later on when we actually use the joints feature. So from here, right clicking bottom, create components from bodies, right-clicking lid, create components from bodies. Now you should have something that looks a little bit like this. Now moving forward, we have 2 new components, which basically restarts the timeline with new features specifically for that component. And additionally, for the lid, the timeline is reset, meaning that we are continuing off based off of the features in our original component. But now whatever we do here, we're primarily a lid, and everything else will not be directly affected unless we go back to our original component here. The next step in this process is to work on the piece, which is the bottom piece here. So as of right now, we don't need the lid function or the lid body now. As of right now, let's go ahead and toggle on our bottom one. And from here, you should completely see that we are working within the bottom body that we just created. And you want to make sure you have this component selected here, and you'll see it listed as active component right here on the right hand side with this little dot. From here, what we want to do now is press S on our keyboard, type in shell, select this first option, and from here, what we're going to do now is go ahead and shell our design by 2.5 millimeters. After you've done that, press OK. So the next step in this process is to move on to the next part in our body here. So from here, we're going to toggle back off our bottom, toggle back on our lid. Now, in order to switch to this component, you're going to want to go over and select this little dot here, which activates this component. And as you can see, this timeline is basically reset or emptied out. From here, what we want to do is create that triangle kind of appearance right here within the lid. That way we can have that swiveling, moving arm or a lid for our trash can. So whenever we put stuff inside, it kind of swings in, and it kind of has that little indent here for us to put stuff inside. So from here, in order to do that, let's go ahead and create new sketch. And from here, I'm also making sure to select this plane right here. So if we were looking at this from the home view, I'm going to go ahead and select this plane here. Now, as of right now, we're currently not sketching on the body, but what we are essentially doing is sketching within this plane here and within this region around this plane. And I'm going to show you exactly what this looks like as of right now. So let's go ahead and get started. So by pressing L on your keyboard, we'll go ahead and just select a point across this plane here. So I'm going to select right at this very edge here where our body kind of ends, dragging this out, dragging this back down, and dragging this back up. Now, as you can see from our right triangle here, what we want to do is, since this is not completely constrained, we want to go ahead or dimensioned out. Let's go ahead and set up some dimensions for this right triangle. So by pressing D on our keyboard, selecting this top line here, let's go ahead and set this to 45 millimeters, and as well as set the dimension for the angle right here. And let's set this to 41 millimeters. After that's done, let's go ahead and press E on our keyboard. And now Fusion 360 will automatically prompt us to go ahead and start the extruding process. So from here, let's extrude this outward here. And by selecting the direction type, select to 2 sides, outward on the other side as well. After that's done, make sure the operation is set to cut and press OK. Now keep in mind, distance doesn't matter as long as it extrudes all the way outwards beyond the scope or beyond the body itself. Once that's done, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. And if we were to toggle back on our original component, which is the whole design, toggle back off our construction, should have something that looks a little bit like this. Now, this is the general overview of what the part looks like. Of course, excluding all the details, we'll need to go ahead and add all the details to add that swiveling lid for this video. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and work on the lid section for this body here. So let's go ahead and toggle back on our lid. Toggle back off the bottom. Let's reorient our plane to the very bottom of our design. Create sketch. Select this face here. And now what we want to do is create some center diameter circles. So from here, selecting the center diameter circle, dragging this out. And what we're going to do is drag this out to about 4 millimeters, or excuse me, dragging this out, setting a dimension. And we're going to set this to 2 millimeters. We're going to create another circle, dragging this in, set another dimension, 4 millimeters. So from here, all I did was create a center diameter circle. I did not set the dimensions for the circle. All I did was set the dimensions from the exterior or the outside of this to the inside on the first one, and the outside to the last one. So the first one should be set to 2 millimeters and the second one should be set to 4 millimeters. After that's done, let's go ahead and press E on our keyboard by selecting this profile here. Drag this up and make sure the distance, or excuse me, the extent type is set to to object. After that's done, let's go ahead and select this top face here. Press OK. Now, if we were to take a good look at this, we have an overall view of our design. We have this little swivel already sectioned out, although it's not completely sectioned out. And the way we know this is that if we were to toggle our browser, go to bodies, you should see we have this lid in the middle and the exterior part. And if we were to toggle off the exterior, you see we have this lid in here. So how do we go about making that swiveling part, removing this exterior part or this part of the body that we actually don't need? Essentially, we just need kind of like this outlining this top piece here. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and press S on our keyboard, type in shell. And what we want to do now is, using the shell feature within Fusion 360, is using the bottom face and the exterior of the lid here. Let's go ahead and shell this inward to about 4.5 millimeters. And now what Fusion has done, it's essentially shelled in the entire design. And now we have just this little lid or swivel function for our project. After that's done, press OK, toggle back on our lid, and now we have the beginning of a trash can. So the very next step in this process is to go ahead and to create some sort of connecting piece for the bottom and the top lid here. Essentially, since we are going to remove this lid once it's full, for example, once we fill up our trash can and once it's full, we want to make sure that this part is removable, but as well as has a good grip or seal when we actually want to place it back on. So from here, let's go ahead and toggle back off our lid, toggle back on our bottom, switch to that component, and from here, let's go ahead and create a new sketch. Let's go ahead and select this top plane here, or this top face here. And as of right now, what we're going to do is create a center diameter circle, selecting the origin, dragging this up, and then press OK. Now, as of right now, I had not set a dimension for this, so let's go ahead and do that. So from here, press D on your keyboard, select this outer sketch here, this inner line here, and let's set this to 1 millimeter. So from here, let's go ahead and extrude our new face here by selecting this profile here. Press E, 5 millimeters, press OK. Now, if we were to go back to our original component, toggling back on that component, turning on our lid, you can see that now we have a general overview of our design. Now, using the section analysis feature, what we're going to do now is take a good look of the section or a partial view of our design. So by pressing S on our keyboard, typing in section, you'll find section analysis being the very first option. And from here, using these planes that are kind of hollowed out or kind of slightly dark or dimmer, we'll select this plane here, which is the very front. And now we should have a section analysis. So let's go ahead and flip this over. If yours is flipped over, press OK. And now as we look at our design, what we were really looking for is this top piece here. Because as of right now, these two bodies are currently basically intersecting each other, and they're not going to be able to fit if we were to 3D print them. So what we need to do in order to create some slot for this top piece to fit into this is that we're going to use the combine feature within Fusion 360 in order to make some space for this top lid to fit into the bottom. So from here, let's go ahead and press S on our keyboard, type in combine. Combine should be the very first option you see there. Target body is going to be the top. Tool bodies is going to be the bottom. And make sure the operation is set to cut. And make sure that keep tools is toggled on. So make sure to select keep tools, because if not, it's not going to work. After that, press OK. From here, we should see now, if we take a good look at our design, if we toggle back off our bottom, now our lid has a little bit of a gap in between here that perfectly aligns with our design at the very bottom. Now, as of right now, although these are technically, they fit within Fusion 360, they still wouldn't actually fit if we 3D printed them, or if we tried to, it'd probably be a really tight fit, and it probably would not be an enjoyable experience. So in order to fix that problem, let's go ahead and toggle back on our bottom. From here, what we're going to do now is by pressing S on our keyboard, we're going to type in press, and the very first option that pops up is press pull. Now what we're going to do now is select this outer face that extends all around this entire body. So by selecting this face here, typing in -0.25, press enter. And now what we've done is essentially offset this face or press pull this face inward just a little bit. And if we're to toggle back on our lid, you can see that now there's a small little gap for our bottom piece to fit in with our top piece. Now, as of right now, I've been doing this or working within Fusion 360 using the section analysis. So in order to turn that off, let's go ahead and go to the browser tab, toggle down the analysis, and turn off section analysis. Let's go back and toggle back on our original design here. And now we have a completely 3D printable trash can within Fusion 360. Now, as of right now, we're still not done yet. We basically have a general overview of our design done. Now we need to add some more details in order to make sure that this part actually swivels around this design here. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and toggle back on our lid. And now what we're going to do is by using the sketch feature within Fusion 360, we're going to go ahead and create some sketches in between the center of our lid here or within the swivel piece here in order to create the pin for our design. So in order to do that, let's go ahead and toggle off the exterior part of this lid here since we don't need this. We'll actually be focusing on this part here. Now by pressing create sketch, what we want to do is select this right view. So if you were to toggle your home view, and look to the very right of this, we're going to toggle this plane here. After that, let's go ahead and create some sketches. Now, as of right now, we're actually not sketching on any particular face or body. What we really want to do is kind of just free sketch on this environment as of right now, and I'll show you exactly why in just a second. So by using the center diameter circle tool, let's go ahead and select that, create one circle, create one more circle, and create one last circle. Just a quick heads up, in the video I mentioned or made 3 circles for this sketch. You can actually use 2 circles and be just fine with that. Just make sure to extrude the pin in the center and as well as extrude the exterior circle to create that hole or basically some clearance around it. So just an FYI, because in the video I used 3 instead of 2, but you can also use 2 and you should be just fine. Now back to the video. Now don't worry about the size as of right now. We can actually dimension this for our design. So by pressing D on our keyboard, selecting this inner circle here, this is going to be 2 millimeters. This circle between this inner circle, 0.5, and this outside circle and this middle circle, 0.5 as well. Now what we want to do now is go ahead and reorient or move this sketch around our environment in order to match this in the middle of our little swivel thing here. So by just moving around within this sketch around this environment here, we can kind of see it's kind of free moving or kind of giving this free moving sketch. So it allows us to move this around the plane. Now what we want to do is just make sure it's centered up. Now we're not really relying on anything specifically, but if we wanted to, we could set some dimensions for this. So select that circle there, maybe 2.1, 2.2. So all I did was set a dimension, selecting this top circle and this line here, and now we set up some constraints. So now we can't free move it, we can only move it left and right. Now what we want to do is go ahead and extrude the part in order to create a little circle or a little gap in between here in order to fit our pin. So let's go ahead and toggle off our lid, select these 3 sketches here, press E on your keyboard, toggle back on that lid, that swivel part there, and let's go ahead, drag this out, select the direction to 2 sides, drag the other side out, and press OK. Now we have our 3D printable swivel piece with a hole where we can fit our pin. Additionally, going back to our sketches within our browser tab, toggling on our sketch, sketch 3, and as of right now, you can see this little middle sketch that we have right here. This is the piece that's actually going to be converted into a pin. So by selecting that sketch, toggling back on our entire lid, let's go ahead and extrude that piece. So by pressing E on our keyboard, extrude this out, make sure it extrudes all the way where it's actually touching this exterior part. Make sure the operation is set to join. The direction will be set to 2 sides, and repeat the process for both sides. Press OK. Now we have our completely 3D printable trash can with the swivel lid. So if we were to import this to our slicer, let's go ahead and reorient this. And now we're slicing it. You can see if we were to go down into around layer 26, 25, you can see that now our pin sits right here in the middle with enough of a clearance for this swivel piece not to touch our pin. And your printer should have no issue printing this, even though there is a slight overhang, as most printers should be able to handle printing moving parts like this. So as you can see, if we have our swivel going up or our swivel being printed, it's going up, it's creating that gap around it. The pin is not being printed as of right now. Now the pin is being printed, and it's going to print around that pin, and it sits inside, and it's going to continue printing as it goes. Now, one thing I did notice here is that the pin or the gap is actually quite close to the very first layer of our design. So what we can do now is going back to Fusion 360, toggling back on our sketch. We can maybe make this a little bit larger, so maybe 2.3. Pressing OK. Let's go ahead and return this back to Fusion 360. So exporting our lid here, save as mesh. Reorient this around. Slice plate. Now as we see these layers start to form, now it starts to form a little bit higher up, so it doesn't immediately start on our first layer. So that's pretty much the overview of the swivel feature within Fusion 360, or creating that feature within Fusion 360, and your printer should have no problem printing this as well. So we're pretty much done with our design. Let's go ahead and take a quick look of what it looks like. And as you can see, if we have a section analysis of everything that we've just made, this first section analysis, we have a section analysis view of our design here with our pin. And let's go ahead and create another section analysis by pressing S on our keyboard, typing in section, selecting this plane here. And now this is the side view of our project here. So now that we've completed that, let's go ahead and finish up this design. Toggling off our sketch. And one additional thing, if you guys haven't noticed, is that since this part is going to be rotating and moving, we need to make sure that this little bump here doesn't actually hit this little ridge here. So what we can do is by pressing S on our keyboard, typing in chamfer, selecting this edge here. So if we were to toggle off our lid, we're basically selecting this little piece here. Just drag this inward to, I'd say 5 millimeters, or maybe 4. After that, press enter. Toggling back on our lid, now we have a little bit of a gap or a space here. So this side weighs a little bit less than this side, because the flap needs to come back inward and kind of sit normally. This should be its original resting spot when after you put something inside. Additionally, now that we're finished, what we want to do now is also add a joint feature within Fusion 360 in order to give that swivel effect within our canvas here. So what we're going to do now is, by using the joints feature within Fusion 360, we're going to go ahead and create that joint, or that moving, sliding, or rotating section within this middle part here. Now in order to do that, let's go ahead and rename our lid, or the swivel, to swivel, since we should have done that earlier, but totally okay. After that's done, let's go ahead and create a new component from that swivel part there. And now typing in as built joint, selecting this little component here, and selecting this outer component, which is our lid. Make sure to select the motion to revolute. And from here, what we're looking for is to find the very center of our sketch here. So since we've already sketched this out and the sketch is still toggled on, we'll go ahead and select the very center of this. Now, Fusion 360 will play an animation for us. Press OK. And if we take a good look, we can see that we can move this around within Fusion. And that's the general overview of what our design looks like. One more time, if I were to put a section analysis of this, selecting this plane here, press OK. using our joint feature we just created, we can kind of see our design moves in. It's not going to ever extend outward because the body is hitting this exterior piece here. And its original spot should be resting back here, since this side is quite long and it should be evenly distributed with this part here. So after that's done, let's talk about our section analysis. And now we're pretty much done with our design. Additionally, one thing I forgot to mention is that if you want to export these pieces together, you'll see that we have our lid here. You want to make sure that when you export your slicer, you're actually exporting that component as one whole component here. So don't actually select the bodies to export within your canvas. You'll actually want to export the entire component. And the reason for this is because if you don't, it's going to export each body individually, and you won't get this 3D printable built-in place swivel feature that we just mentioned here. Just like that. And that's essentially what we're trying to accomplish. Additionally, you could probably add some supports at the very top here to make this a little bit cleaner. But overall, this is a fairly simple design. I know there's a lot of steps involved. I know we're jumping around, and I know that there are lots of new components that we added to this in order to make this work. But overall, once you guys are satisfied with the look, you guys can add maybe some more features like a chamfer or fillet to make it a little bit more your style. That pretty much wraps up today's video. Let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section, as well as if you guys need any clarity on anything that we've covered so far, since I know I'm covering a lot of information pretty quickly, and I know it can be very overwhelming in the beginning, but over time it does get a little bit easier, especially as you continue to practice. But with that said, if you guys did enjoy the video, make sure to thumbs it up, subscribe to the channel, and as well as if you haven't already, make sure to join the 3D printing community down below in the description. And as well as if you want access to the STL files for this project, they'll also be listed in that community as well. So with that said, this is Brandon signing out. See you guys in the next one.